Welcome, folks, to the latest edition of the Coaches Connect call. I'm Coach Jeremy. I'm joined by a lovely group of coaches and one kind of distracted golden retriever. But we have a few items to discuss for today. And Coach Dana has one to get us kicked off. Uh, and it sounds like you were kind of giving us a little feedback before. This discussion is meant to help you kind of sift through some of your thoughts and feelings regarding your ability to coach and guide others when you yourself are feeling, we'll use the term ambivalent towards certain behaviors that you are trying to build. Does that sound about right?
Yep, that sounds about right. Thanks.
Awesome. This is definitely something I think any coach who has some experience in coaching, whether you're day one or if you've been in it for a few years, you will experience this feeling at some time. So whether you're here right now, as Dana is pointing out, or you're someone who's kind of uh, looking ahead to starting your career, understand that this is going to be a very important discussion for you to keep in mind to not only help yourself, but also help guide your clients. I have some thoughts on this one, but I know that there's other experienced coaches here as well. Coaches, how do you continue to have the confidence to guide others when you yourself feel ambivalent towards some of the behaviors you may be helping other people engage in?
I have some thoughts. Hi, Nikki.
Hi,
Um,
Nikki.
so I've been coaching since I don't know, about 20 years now. Not in this space only, but and I've had this experience, and it feels like you're being an imposter, right? It feels like you're trying to teach somebody else something that you yourself haven't figured out. Um, but what I've learned over time is that your clients don't necessarily need you to have figured everything out. And if you can help them find their motivation for wanting to make the changes, if you yourself practice finding motivation for yourself for wanting to change behaviors, and you just do these little like 5-minute actions, you start to move out of this idea of, I need to be a perfect coach, which means a perfect human being, especially in this particular niche. And then you kind of get into a place of like, oh, wow, we're in this together. We're equals in this, and we're working together to solve her problem or his problem. So that's kind of how I frame it in my mind. And I find that that really sets me up to be able to um, get out of the imposter syndrome, which is not a great headspace, and then get into more of, how do I help this person solve their problem? How do I help them find the motivation and the reasoning for what they want to do? So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's helpful. I guess my question is like then do you share sometimes? Like maybe not with your like one-on-one clients specifically, but like is that something then like on social media or something you'd be like, "Hey, these are my," like I don't know, I guess would you say something like these are my things I'm working on this week, like going to sleep earlier, like waking up early, whatever it is, and like, I don't know, and turn it into like, what are you working on? Or like, let's work on this together. Or, I guess, yeah, like how kind of open, how
Yeah.
open are you with with this idea that you are a flawed human? Like yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm always very transparent with my clients. I don't try to come across as I'm an expert in the topic. I try to come across as I'm an expert in behavior change. And so the fact that I'm working through behavior change for myself, well, that's normal. I'm a normal human being. It might not be on the same topic at the same time. So I could maybe say something like, yeah, I was really struggling with this a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, and here's what I found. But my expertise in my mind is not so focused on I'm excellent at this thing. It's more I'm excellent at helping people discover their motivation.
Really well said, Nikki. I mean, that 20 years of experience is definitely shining through there. And yeah, whether you're coaching nutrition, movement, or unrelated discipline, there are certainly some elements of good coaching that span many different genres of coaching or different fields of coaching. So that is certainly one of them. I I popped up into the chat box there and shared a quote from a former mentor of mine, who's a great human themselves, but they shared this gem, which is, "We are flawed humans helping flawed humans." A coach working under the assumption that I have to have all of my shit nailed down 24/7 in order for me to be able to attempt to help someone else is never going to help anyone, and may actually, and they're also doing themselves a disservice. So definitely well said there, Nikki. And hopefully keeping that kind of little quip in mind will help you to move forward, Dana, with your own coaching ability. The second question that you asked there in terms of how much of this do I share with people? It's really up to you. And you kind of alluded to not sharing this in one-on-one coaching. I think you certainly can. Remember, so much of our coaching success is built on the relationships that we're building. So I might not want to center my own experience in a conversation with a client, but if I do find that there's a moment where it's like, oh, it may be helpful for them to learn that, hey, they're not uniquely flawed. I have personally worked on this. Other clients that I have worked on this stuff as well. Here's how we've seen success. Here's where we've also maybe fallen into some of those same pitfalls. Helps us draw more parallels with those clients and helps strengthen the relationship. So you can certainly mention it in one-on-one coaching scenarios. Maybe be a little bit selective when you bring it up. Not every response that a client gives me should be like, oh yeah, I totally get that. That's me too. And which comes across as, I'm not actually listening to you. I'm just waiting for my turn to talk and bring this back to me. So the same applies for social media. You can certainly share like, hey, here's what application of my coaching principles looks like in my life, in my client's life, in a hypothetical situation, how you might apply it. Those are all really valuable things that you can share to engage, attract, delight your clients, which are all things that we're going to mention this week in our CBK course for
Oh, I
folks
just
who
was
were here
listening
last
to it.
week.
Yeah.
Perfect. Then you may have already had some of those ideas kind of percolating for a while. For folks who were here last week, you heard me drone on about the course that is offered by PN, and you may actually have free access to it depending on when you signed up. So if you check your PN dashboard, Coaching Business Kickstarter might already be there for you. But these are certainly topics that when we delve into kind of telling our own story or sharing content online or with clients, we can certainly consider, how do I show the application of what my coaching looks like? So it's not just, here's a random meal in isolation. Here's kind of the framework, which is what we talked about somewhat last week as well in our coaching call. Here's the framework of what that application looks like in the wild. And the example here is me. So yeah, definitely something to explore a little bit more. Coaches, any other additional thoughts on this one that anyone has, or anything that bubbles to the surface for you? Michael.
I just wanted to say I got certified 3 months ago, so I'm still kind of new to it, but there's a beautiful accountability that comes with this profession that that I just think is lovely. Dana was talking about the other side of it, that we trying to know all the answers and stuff like that. But I just find it incredibly inspiring to always connect with other people and hear what their challenges are, trying to keep up with your own challenges, because there is a little bit of imposter syndrome for sure as I, get grounded in all the training. But I just really like that part, the accountability.
Yep, and I mean, it's one of our most valuable tools that we offer to clients. One that is slightly harder for people to comprehend if they haven't experienced coaching or had some sort of supportive relationship that's similar. Maybe something like a therapist, like a teacher, like a coach in a different field. Having that person who's like, hey, I have your back. We can have this conversation. It's a non-judgmental space because I too, again, flawed human, have experienced these things. Uh, it is harder to kind of share that messaging online or in kind of text or in other formats, but it comes across very clearly once people begin to actually engage with you. If someone has found a great way to share that message online, please point me in that direction, because I've been stumbling and bumbling over those words for the past 10 years of my career, and I haven't found a great way to be like, hey, this is a thing that you should pay me for. And it's the thing that probably keeps most of my clients engaged, when the average fitness industry messaging tends to be about, here are 5 booty workouts. or here is a recipe that you should make that's high protein. That's what people typically see when they're engaging and looking for a coach. It's not the thing that generally builds a coaching relationship. When someone cracks that egg, please let me know. Anne Marie, was there something that you wanted to mention?
I was just going to say that I think when you're, authentic with people and sharing with them things that you're changing in your own personal journey and things that you're learning along the way, it keeps them really engaged. I know, like, I'm surrounded by a lot of friends that are on my health journey with me, and they're always saying, I'm always learning something new from you, or I'm always excited for the next thing that I just learned in when I'm going through the course. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell you about this, resisting carbs, or like anything that I learned. And they're like, oh my God, tell me more about that. And it keeps them for the long term, knowing that you're always improving yourself and you're always learning more and you're always going to have something new to share with them and something
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be helpful. So I think it's good to just, be honest and share what you're learning, and, that you're putting it into practice. And I always tell my clients too, I always try things out for myself before I share it with them. So they know I'm always trying the new thing that's out, or just not that it's a new thing, but something new to me that I just learned. And it keeps you like a current, like, and your clients engaged.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly value uh, in using kind of new and novel content for engagement. Also, the idea that you're sharing a principle of your own personal identity. You are someone who values knowledge, who values education, who values gaining personal experience, and that shows and is demonstrating your coaching approach as well. So that kind of like linking those two concepts together is incredibly
Mhm.
useful.
Yeah.
Also, the idea that we want to celebrate typically we want to
Mhm.
celebrate our community's engagements
Mhm.
or achievements, I should say. Sorry. So
Mhm.
if there's something that you're working on and you said, hey, like I did this cool thing, I'm really happy about it, you will
Mhm.
typically get people coming out of the woodwork to to congratulate you, to engage with you. And then that becomes a point where you can reestablish certain relationships or deepen certain relationships because now there's a little bit of rapport there. And you can ask them, hey, what can I do for you? How can I help to celebrate some of your achievements?
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's good.
Reciprocity is a real thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
Just had one question actually piggybacking off of
Please.
Nikki, you said something about like that you're an expert at helping people find the motivation. And I guess I just had a follow-up question. It was sort of like kind of got in there a little bit. And I mean, I assume that is just by like asking questions and getting deeper i- into their why. Like that, like the method of that is just getting into like their five whys, or were you referring to something else?
Well, two things, and I think that PN does a good job of weaving motivational interviewing into the curriculum. But I also studied motivational interviewing, and it's a process. It's a process, and it's worth getting the book. It's very dense and hard to get through, to be honest. But it's absolutely worth doing, or doing like a foundational course in it, because it really gives you this confidence to feel like you're helping that person understand what's really below the surface. So you could use the five whys, and that's one way of doing it. But I find like if you use that motivational interviewing approach, it's really solid. I don't know. What do you think, Jeremy? I mean, you look like you've read the book by the looks of things.
I am furiously Googling motivational interviewing, nutrition, and fitness so I can share a link in the chat.
Yeah, I have it.
We
I got
probably,
both books, but yeah, I haven't read them yet. So
oh, this is
yeah.
an ungodly link here. I apologize. I will say I've only read the nutrition and fitness one. I actually stole it from Jeff Gervitz. Sorry, Jeff. I'll return it at some point, I'm sure. Probably not. But yeah, I think it is a great tool in terms of kind of uncovering people's motivation. The art of it is very much wrapped in motivational interviewing. I find specifically being able to ask really valuable questions. And as you develop your coaching practice, you're going to start to have like your quiver is just going to be jam packed of really pointed questions that you find incredibly valuable. And you'll start to understand at what stage of coaching should I pull out this question? So the 5 whys is kind of one that we have that we share with coaches right away, and it's kind of the only arrow that you have in that quiver initially, but you will spin off more questions from there. You will understand when to ask those questions, and part of it just happens from engaging with more people and having those conversations. But motivational interviewing, specifically the nutrition and fitness version of that book, will accelerate your ability to ask those questions. There are some kind of like case study demonstrations there. And as far as textbook goes, uh, not that hard to get through, I would say. It was, at least if you're really engaged in coaching, you will see the links in the crossovers where it's like, oh, this is where PN stole that concept. And we 100% stole that concept because good coaches will always steal from good coaching resources, no matter where they pop up. So you'll note that there are some that are really great for that first meeting with a client, some that are really useful when a client is in identifying their actions, some that may be really useful when they're struggling with said actions, even questions that you will use to get them to celebrate themselves and to notice their own wins. These are all really incredible things to have, and you develop those through the active coaching.
Thank you.
I Nikki, is that a different? Actually, I'm just going to click on this link. Is this a different version of the textbook? Like oh, this is their actual site.
Yeah, this is actually, and I do highly recommend this class. It takes about, well, depending on how fast you work, but it's presented on PsychWire. It's about $350, and each of the people who originally designed motivational interviewing explain the foundation for it. They explain their thinking behind it. They give you case studies, real world case studies that you watch, you can observe. It's a really good foundational course if you don't feel like trudging through the textbook. I find that the textbook is helpful for referencing. So I'm actually doing the motivational foundational course for a second time because I just found it so helpful.
You can also Google if you live in like a college or university town, or there's one that's not too far from you. I know that I took a course at a university in Toronto that was like a 2-day course over a couple of weeks, and incredibly useful to just kind of test the skill against other skilled practitioners and see what kind of feedback and responses you get. You can also ask those things here. Like, this is an open forum for those. So if you have case studies that you want to bring forward, by all means, we can utilize some of our motivational interviewing skills and share some of them with you so you can take them back to those coaching case studies.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, my plan is also to do level 2 of precision nutrition. Is that, and I think they do that there, right?
They do indeed. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
that's where I became aware of the concept of motivational interviewing. It was like
Okay.
lightly mentioned in L1 when I took it way back
Right.
in the 2010s. Uh, but it is firmly baked into L2, and
Yeah.
again, gives you an opportunity to utilize those skills with other coaches and develop them in real time. So
Right. Oh,
you have several pathways
options.
forward
Yeah, exactly.
from textbook all the way to like high level courses. So hopefully you take advantage of some of those.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for starting that conversation. Any final thoughts before we move on? Cool. I popped this into the chat box already, but in case you haven't seen it already, uh, here is our first case study for today. So take about a minute, read through the post as well as some of the comments if you would like to. And then the question would be, how would you respond to this coach? So what would your feedback to the coach be? And then if you were in the coach's position, how would you engage with that client? And for folks who are watching the replay and unable to see this, I will give you a little bit of a preview of what this case study looks like. If I can find which one I pulled up. So this is from Coach Desiree Schultz-Hainer. Oh, my page refreshed. Sorry, Coach Desiree, give me 1 second. So Coach Desiree has a client in their 60s, weight training and some light cardio 4 to 5 times per week. They have an active job, but home life is quite sedentary, and they aren't coming close to their calorie goal of 1,809 calories, which is a very specific number. They normally only eat 800 to 1,100 calories daily. However, their diet isn't great, which I'm going to assume means the diet quality isn't great. And then she goes on to add very heavy in carbs and fat, although they're currently working on improving protein. So they're working on improving dietary quality, it looks like, as well as calorie tracking. With all that said, the coach says they're struggling because their client has gained some weight. So initially they lost 10 pounds within the first 4 weeks, and then in the last 2 weeks, they've gained 2 back. Coaches, what are our thoughts here? First of all, kind of commentary towards the coach. Kimberly.
Just reading this, I mean, the biggest things that kind of popped in my mind initially was, I mean, her diet being very heavy in carbs. I don't know if she's like needs that much carbs for what she's doing. It sounds like she's doing some weight training with light cardio. And, you know, if she was doing maybe like more high intensity, I would see a reason for the carbs. Also, I don't know much about her recovery or like if her sleep or if she's eating late at night. I think those things I would probably like explore and also understand if, you know, if she's gaining weight, is that more muscle or is that fat? So I would probably want to understand more of that too.
Cool. So some further exploration for the coach to dig into and share a little bit more detailed explanation before we can give more specific feedback. Thank you. Any other coaches have any feedback or any questions that they would want to explore with the coach or feedback for the coach?
Well, I feel like there's way too much focus on calories and weight, and the woman is 60 years old. She's obviously got some established habits, so I would like get away from all this measuring and scaling everything and get her rather into thinking about little habits that she could change on a daily basis. I imagine that she has a weight loss goal, but I would want to try and sort of manage that expectation a little bit and have her look at a longer timeline and rather look at sustainable habits. And then maybe in 6 months' time, when she's got some more sustainable habits in place, then reintroduce this idea of, you know, what her plate looks like and how to arrange it in a way that it's like protein, veggies, and then still having her carbs because it's obviously a comfort food for her. But, you know, making that later on in the meal, just so she's getting that protein and veg in first. And then maybe in a year's time, get back on the scale. I don't know. I just don't think the scale is going to help her at this point.
Fair. Any additional feedback, coaches, or points that you want to bring up? Dana.
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering, like, to the coach, I mean, and maybe it's obvious, but like, I think she just says, you know, although we are working on protein, and I'm just sort of like, what does that actually mean? What do you mean when you say we are working on protein? I mean, obviously, I guess it means, you know, working on getting more protein, but like, you know, is she, you know, are they doing like protein shakes? Are they doing like full protein? Is this person a vegetarian? Like, I don't know. I guess I just sort of wonder what that means. And again, you know, it says here like the diet isn't great in quotations, I think. So, I mean, yeah, which very heavy in carbs and fat, but I guess, yeah, just maybe a little bit more clarity. And I think, yeah, I mean, I guess I would agree with what Nikki said, just around like trying to get away from these measurements of, you know, and focus on behavior.
Excellent. Thank you, Dana. Bernadette, I saw you pop on camera. Was there something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, so it looks like she lost 10 pounds in a month and then gained 2. 2 pounds to me is not that significant to gain back. Like, is it, was it did she just weigh herself one day and then gain 2 pounds? Or was it a period of a week she gained 2 pounds? I mean, I think that's really important because if you lost 10, which it was specific within a month, right? I believe she says 4 weeks, and then you gain 2 pounds. As a coach, I wouldn't be so concerned about gaining 2 pounds. However, I would as well focus on, providing her more protein. And the other thing that stood out to me too is, I mean, her calories seemed really low, right? Her calorie intake seemed really low. So with that being said, if it was a long period of time where she gained, let's say she had gained 10 pounds back and her calories were low, then I would look at that. But I mean, 2 pounds to me is not so significant that I would be like, oh, I'm going to focus on those 2 pounds. But I would focus on making sure that her diet, she adds more protein because that would keep her full longer, of course, and focus on her diet. That would be my focus, not on, gaining 2 pounds after losing 10. So anyway.
Excellent. So it sounds like there's a pretty strong consensus in terms of there are points of feedback that we deliver directly to the coach. More questions, I think, than direct answers here in terms of like what pathway would we take forward. There's clearly a lot of missing data here. Like we have age, we have biological sex, we have kind of a little bit of activity profile. We have calorie target, and then maybe the least reliable data there, we have a floating kind of average of some of their calorie intake. So there's a lot of kind of like, if we're looking at the board of this person, a lot of this is still covered and hidden here. We'll have to assume some things. Some of them are safer assumptions. Some of them are a little bit more in the clouds. Hard to say. Given the information that we have or that you could reasonably posit here, what feedback would you have for the client in terms of managing this conversation? The thing that I pick up on this conversation that the coach seems to be struggling with here a little bit is the last part of information there. Lost 10 pounds, gained 2. What am I doing? What am I missing? I think they're struggling on holding that conversation. That seems like a point of friction for them. How would you handle that conversation for the client? And we've gotten a little bit of feedback here specifically regarding expectation setting and what is kind of reasonable in this time period, as well as kind of like what are some of the sources of weight gain. Anything else that coaches would engage in here?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess my question also is how are they tracking the calories? Um, because yeah, I mean like it's been mentioned, I mean it's 800 to 1100, is that what it was? It's so low and I
That's
remember
what they are reporting.
right. So I guess I'm wondering how are they report like, is there a better way? Like maybe do they have to be sending pictures or something to actually I think it was on a previous one of these calls, I think, where somebody said something like a coach said, okay, but like what's the food that you're eating when you're standing up? Like that counts too, or just kind of
Mhm.
because yeah, there's clearly, I would assume, a lot of inaccuracy about this tracking.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I guess the method of tracking, if there's a better way to track, and and I don't know how I had an issue sort of with a client that I had at some point, where she was so focused on the weight and the scale, and like 0.5 of a pound would really kind of throw her off. And so that was something that I sort of struggled with. But like, yeah, I guess would would maybe try to see if this client is willing to measure success in a different way. and again, I don't have the vocabulary as to how, rather than just asking, her, if they're willing to, what other ways are there that we can measure success? But that is kind of the like gist of the conversation, is like, how else can we measure your success rather than the scale? And yeah, basically that.
Fair. So I'll share my feedback here as well. It's very similar to all of you. From me to coach, uh, very curious about how they're tracking calories. Uh, we talked about kind of like the accuracy of calorie tracking there. Is this a skill that they previously possessed? Have they demonstrated adequate competency in this skill? Are we also coming in with the assumption that no matter how well you think you're doing a calorie tracking, it is never 100% accurate? That's kind of why I laughed when the calorie target was 1,809 calories, which is absurdly specific. Outside, even in a laboratory setting, it would be hard to get that accurate. Unless you have this person living in a metabolic ward where they are tracking their inspiration, expiration, and CO2 levels, like this is just not going to happen. That is maybe something that we need to remind ourselves of as coaches and also our clients. Someone who is really good at calorie tracking will get general trends where energy intake, like given enough of a buffer between what we assume their maintenance calories are and what we assume they're taking in, if they're pretty good at this, they'll be able to manipulate their weight up and down. To what degree, by how many calories, it doesn't really matter, but that trend over time is what we would expect to see followed. So right now, if this person is saying, I'm eating 800 to 1100 calories, we have no idea what their given weight is, what their estimated caloric maintenance levels or their BMR would be, it doesn't track. So that already tells me that their ability to calorie count is maybe not entirely present. We need to remember that as a coach. We need to also remind our clients, hey, this is a flawed science that we're using here. It will give us general trends. If you say that you're eating this and your weight went up, it typically means that there is maybe a blank area or a gray area that you are not accounting for. If you think that's true as well, let's go over kind of some of your dietary patterns for this period of time and ask ourselves the question, where is maybe there a blank spot? Is there some snacking happening? Is there some condiments we're not tracking? Something like that. That's as granular in the conversation as we can get. As Nikki also mentioned, we might also want to understand, hey, is this maybe not the right tool for this person? Are they really emotionally attached to it and they feel like, hey, this is the thing that's brought me success, I really want to do it? Cool, then maybe we continue with that. But if it's us who is saying you got to track your calories and they're not doing a great job and they're actually seeing progress that is counterproductive, we might want to take a step back and say, hey, what are some other ways that we can focus on your nutritional profile here? Do we want to improve what ends up on your plate? Do we want to focus on a specific macronutrient? Do we want to track in a different way? Those are all pathways forward. Also, as Bernadette and others have said, a gain of 2 pounds is only a reference to, as far as we know here at least, their body weight at a very specific instance in time. If they had taken that at 8 a.m. in the morning versus 8 p.m. at night, that number could have also been different. It is entirely possible that they were taking a rolling average throughout the week at the same time every day. That should help eliminate some noise, but we don't have that information. So we can't say that for sure. If we assume that it was taken very likely at one point in the week, that is just random kind of variation in the system right now. Also understand that over kind of a 24 to 48 hour period, depending on someone's nutrition, their activity levels, or hydration status, for women where they are in their menstrual cycle, it is not uncommon to see a variation of 1 to 2% of body weight day to day. A 2 pound gain or loss could very well fit within that 1 to 2% variation, which is a way to say that it's like we maybe are placing way too much emphasis on this. And from what I'm reading from the comment, it seems like the coach is buying into that a little bit, and they may be getting that feedback from their client where their client really feels like, I gained 2 pounds, what the heck? this is where we put in our coach hat and say, let's pump the brakes for a second. Let's really put that 2 pounds into context. What does this mean for you? What have I seen in general populations? 2 pounds for someone who's maybe in like the 200-pound range is very much within that kind of 1% change, aka not a whole deal. In terms of it being potentially muscle mass gain, it is possible, but I'm gonna say, going a little bit deeper, 6-year-old woman who's engaged in strength training, we don't know her training profile, how long she's been training, what style of training. I would be surprised if she put on 2 pounds of muscle over a 6-week period. She would either be like a really hyper responder, uh, or it would be some percentage of body fat and muscle. What I would still focus on is, hey, what was your movement patterns like during those weeks? How did you feel about your workouts? So as other coaches have pointed out, can can we can we focus on other areas that are valuable to this client? And essentially what we're trying to do here, and again, this is what I'm reading from the comment, and this is something if I'm going to toot my own horn, I think I'm pretty good at this, which is walking people back from the edge. So as a coach, an essential skill, because quite often our job, or it feels like our job security, relies on how someone interprets their progress while they're working with us. The most common indicator for a lot of people is going to be, how is my body responding week to week? It is your job as a coach to, one, early on, try and take some of the emphasis off those things, because you will buy yourself more breathing room, and typically your client will be able to then see more of the ways that they are actually improving without it being a very narrow goalpost. Uh, this coach maybe needs to do a little bit more of that. Now they're in a position where they likely feel that their client is in some sort of kind of red zone. So the warning light is going off. My client is unhappy. What am I doing? I think that is, if I'm interpreting it, the reason for this post. Uh, Coach Desiree, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong if you ever see this in the future. And this is definitely not a critique of the work you're doing there, because clearly you're asking for help, which is great. Uh, what we need to do with that client, or what I would encourage folks to do, is, again, like people have mentioned here, let's widen what those goalposts look like. Let's put into context what 2 pounds means. Let's also talk about progress that they've seen in other areas, as well as kind of how their body has changed thus far. And then let them know, hey, this is likely to happen in the future again. You will likely see periods of weight loss followed by small periods of weight gain. Over time, that's kind of what progress looks like. We don't expect linear changes. We expect some random variation in the system. We can help to dial down some of that variation by changing our measurement protocols, but also we don't really need to emphasize them too much. As long as the other elements of your behavior change are working well, or your nutrition changes are coming along, I expect over time that you'll be in a better place. And then we can reassess at certain intervals how things are working for you, using that fantastic PN question of, hey, how is that working for you? So those are the things that I would share, one with coach directly, and then from coach to client, to try and kind of work all with this system. You're going to see this a whole bunch. You will likely be this coach at some point. My greatest advice that I can give to you at this point, especially if you're starting, is do not hang your hat or your self-worth or your ability to coach on how someone else's body changes. It is not an accurate indication of your skill, especially as they only have kind of a mid-level ability to control it. You have even less control of it. Don't get caught up in that emotional tango. It will not end well. Cool. Any final thoughts before we move on to our next case study? Give me 1 second. I have so many tabs open.
Well, I guess just a question. I mean, I think you maybe answered it, but like, so what are would you have this person like focus on, you know, like the positive things, like, oh, well, but you're going to the gym 5 times a week. Like, how would you sort of um, have that person focus on the non-skill victories? Like what other victories would it be?
Yep. So it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, and I actually meant to touch on this as well. And as Elizabeth put in the chat box, yes, we can expand the goalpost by talking about non-scale victories. What I would encourage people to do, this is just based on my experience, is if my client is upset about a specific something, so in this case, some fluctuations in body weight, I wouldn't dismiss their concern right off the bat and say, oh, don't worry about it. It's only 2 pounds. Here are all the things you did great. Because it does come off as very dismissive and we're not addressing the thing head on. Ideally, what I would have done was prep them to say, hey, at some point, you're going to get a measurement that might not feel great. How do you want to talk about it? Here are some things that you might want to consider. But if we're in this place, I would let them kind of lead that conversation and first start by just like letting me know, hey, how do you feel about that measurement? Does it reflect, do you feel like it reflects the effort that you put in this week? Is there anything that you feel like you maybe wanted to do better but didn't? Or is there anything that you are considering as an additional strategy? I want them to kind of set the table first and then show me which direction they want to go. If they're like, you know what, it was kind of a stressful week. I didn't feel like I did X, Y, and Z that well. Great. This is a really easy conversation. We're back into just regular coaching talk. If they are really hung up on that 2 pounds and like, you know what, I tried so hard. I felt like this was really unsustainable. I didn't want to calorie count. And in the past, this has really screwed with my head and weighing every day is really messing with me. That is incredible for me to know. I probably should have asked those things initially, but the second best time to ask is right now when my client is showing signs of distress. So uh, don't push the conversation to the side and try and kind of immediately go sunshine and rainbows. Figure out what is actually behind kind of that distress. No one really gives a crap about 2 pounds in the grand scheme of life, but in this moment, it's a value. Let's continue to figure out why is that valuable. And then from there, does it mean that we need to change anything? Or is this just an opportunity for them to kind of take off some of that stress, allow me to re-explain appropriate expectations here, and then focus on other things that are of value that kind of push that other thing off to the side without me kind of stamping it out of the way for them. Because it's just going to be unsustainable for me to every week, if there's a variation that goes up, I have to sit on pins and needles until they bring it up, or I have to then always continue to remind them, like, no, 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 it's not important. The thing I'm telling you is important. The thing that you're potentially paying me for and care about more than anything is not important. So, not minimize kind of that stress, explore how it impacts their choices or how they kind of feel about it, and then potentially changing course and also mentioning other things of value. Does that make sense, Dana?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. I think it's very common for coaches, and I know this for myself as well as an early coach. If you've gotten to, I think it's like page, it's within like the first chapter of motivational interviewing, the writing reflex, where it's like we want to correct, but we also want to take away bad feelings. Bad feelings aren't always inherently bad. There's often a sign that, oh, there's a deeper conversation to have there. And if we explore that conversation, we can get to a better place. Uh, oh, I already popped Nikki. Yes, the second best time to ask that question is now. I popped another discussion in the chat box there. We have a few minutes to tackle this one. And for folks who are not seeing this, I will read some of the description. So this from Coach Alex Ho, and Coach Alex is looking at working with night shift nurses, or specifically, I guess we can generalize this to a little bit of shift workers as well, although medical professionals do have some unique stressors involved. But Coach Alex has a client who works night shift in the ICU. They started out with their core habits of high protein veggies, hunger cues, and now their nurse is currently tracking calories and also eating very few calories, 600 to 1100 calories per day. Their target is much higher, but sometimes that is all the appetite that this nurse has. That all said, their weight hasn't budged and progress seems pretty minimal. Anyone have any insight on how this can be solved? Uh, I'm going to also do some assumption here that actually I'm unsure if this person is trying to gain weight or lose weight, but we can work from both sides of the equation because they are fairly similar from a behavioral standpoint. Coaches, this is actually maybe not too dissimilar to our last case study, with the added wrinkle of shift work and potentially more of a high stress environment that our 60-year-old may not have been experiencing, depending on their employment status and such. Anything pop up for you? Actually, too, just because of time considerations, we're going to work under the assumption that this client wants to gain weight, thus the higher calorie intake. So we're going to assume, at least for the sake of our discussion, that the calorie intake that they're giving, the range there, is accurate, and this person is eating under their target calories. So any questions for the coach, and then any specific feedback from coach to client?
I think I would go with approaching this as a possibly a stress recovery situation where it needs, I want to know more about what is this person doing about managing stress and recovery the next day. What's their sleep? That's probably a huge component of it. Just that would be my instinct, but yeah, it's kind of where I would head, the direction I would go.
Going a little further there, how might we anticipate that sleep and recovery are influencing their overall progress?
How? Can you phrase the question a little differently?
So stressful clients engage in a stressful profession where sleep and recovery are compromised. How might we assume that compromised sleep and recovery may influence their overall progression as a client or them reaching their goals?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I mean, I think I'm only just learning about the sleep component and some of the neurobiology and all of that good juicy stuff, right? But my understanding is that this person is going to have higher cortisol rates, which is going to make it really difficult for them to recover and get good sleep, and it's going to be impacting all of that. So I guess what I would want to know from them is what's important to them about this body composition change that they're looking for. Like, what is it they're actually after? Are they looking for body composition change, or are they looking for well-being? So does it to your question? Because I'm not sure I answered your question so well.
A little bit, but if we go into the chat, so I'm going to give Carolyn, I don't know if you're able to unmute, Carolyn, but if you can unmute, I'm curious to see a little bit more about your line of thinking, because I think I'm hitting on the same thing as well.
Sure, Jeremy. Yeah, I think Nikki's going in the right direction because feels like we're on the same page too. With I feel like sleep could definitely have an impact, and not that I've had much experience with night shift myself, but I think that sleep is connected to our overall being. So if we're lacking on sleep, that could also impact other areas of our health. Including our nutrition and how hungry we are throughout the day, and his other goals too, and making progression and maybe trying to gain some weight. So that was just the mindset I was in. But yeah, I don't know if that's where you're going, Jeremy.
So Dana mentioned it in the chat box, and this is where I'm rolling into as well. So between both Nikki and Carolyn, sleep or inadequate sleep and inadequate recovery are definitely areas that we'll want to focus on a little bit more specifically with our shift worker clients. Uh, that being said, they will likely always be at some sort of a disadvantage. Even if we can get everything else in order, they'll have to work like a little bit harder all the time. And for many folks, this is the challenge of shift work. It is going to influence both sleep quality, recovery quality, and if we skip by some of the kind of the neurobiology, hunger and fullness cues are an area that I think is definitely going to be impacted for this client, especially if we are working under the assumption that they are far under eating what they need to for their specific weight gain goal, which again, this is some stuff that I'm inferring here. It's not in the actual post there. So they could be a weight loss client, and then we'll have a different set of questions. But if we're working under the assumption this client wants to gain weight, they are struggling to eat, they could be someone who, when their sleep is disrupted or those kind of their biochronology, if we get to use a fancy word today, is being influenced by their professional work, they may actually be experiencing kind of a suppressed diet. There are likely other things at play here as well, which could be potentially related to uh, some of the structural elements of their setup, including not having time to eat full nutritious meals. That may be something we want to address. Uh, Being able to kind of like de-stress and down-regulate when they are not at work. Is that something that they have? What is their planning and preparing like? Again, in those non-professional times, a lot of shift workers will also, especially medical shift workers, will often work like a rotating shift where they're on for a few days at a time and then off for a few days at a time. So these are things that we'd want to explore from both kind of the immediate impacts as well as the structural impacts of what they would experience as a shift worker. And then obviously we would explore things like their movement patterns, exercise, all of those things, how they're influencing body composition changes. But those are a few elements that I would particularly bring up, one from me to coach, and then coach to client, giving them some easier to implement solutions so they can kind of compensate for some of the lack of ideal kind of structure of their day to day. Coaches, anything else pop up for you that you'd want to share with Coach Alex or his client?
Well, from a selfish point of view, I have a client at the moment who's an ER physician, and one of the things that we're trying to do is sort of insert micro habits. So she's, for example, typically won't eat anything but a peanut butter jelly sandwich in a 12-hour shift. She usually works an extra 2 hours because she does the night shift, so she doesn't want to leave anyone hanging, and doesn't go for bathroom breaks. So like at the moment, my goal is to try and get her to take 2 bathroom breaks. I mean, that's how small and micro habits that we're working on. And she was very proud of herself the other day that she took 2 bathroom breaks and went to the snack shop and had a snack in her shift. So if anybody has any other ideas, I'm open to hearing them.
I don't actually know. I do have a current client who's a similar situation. Can I ask what the age range of your client is or their professional like years of experience?
She's been in the ER for 20 years. She's 48
Oh, wow.
years old.
Okay, so this is more prevalent than I thought. So I have a few friends who are in similar professions as medical professionals, and the not going to the bathroom thing seems to be like a real,
It is
I
a
don't know if
thing.
it's a problem as much as like a badge of honor.
Yes.
It seems to draw like a lot of like knowing laughs when we're together. Uh, so didn't I always thought that was like, oh, you're low man on the totem pole. That's why you're not getting these breaks. But 20 years in and still kind of holding to those habits may be something where it's like, oh, is this structural? Like you don't have anyone who you can tell, hey, hold down the fort for me for the next 5, 10 minutes and I'll be right back. Or is this something where it's like this is more related to kind of their identity and they're like, I want to be a caregiver, and taking time for myself takes away from that caregiver identity. So curious on that front. Uh, in terms of, yeah, leaning heavily into convenience, I think is okay in these situations, even where it's like, oh, conventionally we would say, oh yeah, try and avoid like minimally or more minimally processed foods, sitting down, eating slowly and mindfully. It's like those are things that maybe develop as they are showing competency and like kind of just nailing the basics. If right now they're starting at PB and J and no P breaks, it's like we need to set expectations much more appropriately so
Yeah.
that we don't tell them things that just feel so out of their realm of possible that they're just like, okay, this person doesn't understand me at all. So yeah, starting with
It's not
1 to 2
easy.
P breaks is great.
Yeah, it's and this is actually the reason I'm doing this course at the moment, is because I'm very passionate about helping medical professionals find some balance. There's a crisis in medical care at the moment because doctors are in a culture where the more you grit and grind through your work, the more status you get, the more your peers approve of you. And if you complain or you try and take that bathroom break, everybody looks at you like you're weak. This is what it's been explained to me as, and I have
Mhm.
clients and family members in medical care. So it's, to me, it's something I'm very passionate about. Sorry, I just went on a tangent there for a sec.
All good. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a cultural issue, I would say, more so than this individual person. Like it is very much systemic in that field. Uh, if you have any people who are nurses, doctors, medical professionals in those spaces, they are inherently high performers. No one becomes a doctor who is a lazy doctor. They, uh, they have been conditioned to very much like limit everything else that wasn't become a doctor. And then once they're there, it's not like, oh, I can finally rest and relax. It's no, now I got to compete for those vaunted and coveted positions so that I can stay in the big city, or I can get the specific internship, or I can do that other thing. So uh, being able to understand that for medical professionals or for anyone else, what is kind of their driver? What is the system that, in which they participate in before we go to kind of some of our default settings that we're like, oh yeah, everyone should be able to do this. It's not always inherently true. And again, as you work with more people, uh, you may find that you run into some friction because of those things. So taking a step back and trying to understand their POV a little bit more tends to be incredibly useful. And yeah, it sounds funny to us to encourage someone to go pee, someone who is, I assume, in their 40s at this point. Uh, but yeah, that's where some of our clients are at, even some of our most high flying clients. So being able to understand that can certainly help with creating that connection and understanding where we need to actually begin with them. That being said, we will wrap up here for today. Thank you all for the conversation. Thanks for willing to go there with me and explore some of our case studies. Hopefully, our coaches see them in the future and they gain some insight from this as well. And the third case study that I promised got scrapped for today. Sorry to that coach. Maybe we'll get you next time. Take care, gang.
Thank you.